Hi everyone, Michael Sandler here, best-selling author and your host on Inspire Nation. Check out our website where we've been posting podcasts, tips, videos, blogs, and more at inspirenationshow.com. Today we have a very well-traveled healer, documentary filmmaker, and self-proclaimed artivist. Her name is Marie-Rose Phan-Le. Marie-Rose has 20 plus years experience in film and TV production. She's traveled extensively from Hawaii to the Himalayas for award-winning documentary film and companion book, Talking Story. Marie-Rose has transitioned her flourishing healing practice, working one-on-one with individuals, to focusing on one-to-many through her media projects and consulting work. Currently the Chief Operating Officer and Creative Director at High Impact Inc., she applies ancient wisdom to the modern challenges of running a successful business. She's a beautiful bridge, which we're going to find out more about. Marie-Rose was born in Vietnam, emigrated to France, and later to the U.S., and is currently living in Hawaii. If you're wondering how to find direction in life, how to heal, or simply curious about indigenous healing techniques dating back thousands of years, then today's show is for you. Today we'll be talking story with Marie-Rose, talking about the hero's journey. In this case, the one that took her from the comfort of a 9-to-5 job in the States to a world journey, meeting with Shaman, Kahunas, Llamas, and remote villages in Peru, Nepal, Tibet, the lava fields of an active Hawaiian volcano, and deep inside China. We'll talk about what possesses someone to leave their comfort zone for a greater cause, and how that journey can lead to self-discovery and guidance. At the same time, we'll look at endangered indigenous healing practices and what they mean for our own health. Welcome to the show, Marie-Rose. Are you ready to shine?
Oh yeah, I am.
Woohoo! All right, so let's jump right into things, and let's look at the harder side of things. What was your life like before you decided to take this great adventure?
You know, I would say, well, when you said 9 to 5, I thought, I don't think I've ever had a 9 to 5 job. So, as I worked in film, and then I worked in technology, and you know that we get rewarded for being workaholics. So,
no. So 9 to 5 would have been having it easy.
Yeah, I would have been like, oh, that's easy. But yeah, I was working in film, and then I transitioned over to new media, and working for a big company in the Pacific Northwest. And in many ways, kind of having made it, because before then, my family really didn't understand what I did when I said I worked in film. But when I said I worked at this company, it made sense to them. Not that they knew what I did, but they knew where I was doing it was legitimate. So in many ways...
They were more approving at that point.
Yeah. It was as if I joined the normal ranks or something. And you know, that was definitely an achievement, and I enjoyed my time there. I learned a lot, and I was able to be more creative than I thought, actually. But I still was yearning, you know, for more. Just wanting to know more, wanting to experience more of life and of the things that are beyond what we can see. And so that was part of my restless soul syndrome.
And from watching your documentary, from reading your book, I understand that you had kind of a hidden past in your family that you wanted to explore a bit as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. I wasn't as, this is such a no-brainer now, but at the time I wasn't as conscious about that piece in my psyche. But my family had some healing heritage. My great-grandfather was a blind man. He could see. He could see your past. He could see potentials in the future. And then I found out later that I have an auntie who was a trance medium, and that's how she did her healing work. And my mother channeled her healing gift through a more acceptable Western modality, which is to become a registered nurse.
Okay.
And my brother became a medical doctor.
So healing, you could say, runs in your blood.
Yeah, just so.
And you went into film.
Yeah, crazy. I know, I was pre-med. I was supposed to follow in my brother's footsteps.
Little did you know. So, all right, you go on this journey, you say, how did you get motivated, or what was the driving force for where you were going to go and what you were going to do?
I think it was twofold, Michael. I think, as you said, this idea of the culture from which I came, which had been set aside or kind of put aside because of war and colonization. So this history of war and colonization in Vietnam. And so that was there in terms of a sense of loss of connection to one's own culture or one's own healing heritage, because it would be deemed as superstitious or ignorant. Any well-educated Vietnamese person, which is the class from which I came, you don't talk about that woo-woo stuff. It just not good.
So when you're talking healers, you're not talking that in the past they were MDs. They were something a little more hands-on, so to speak.
Yeah, I think the idea of having the French education later on, the American influence, was that you move from the superstitious backwoods, folk medicine into Western medicine. That's a raising of one's consciousness. That's a moving progress, I guess.
We'll put that in quotes. Progress.
Yeah. So I think that this idea of if you're going to survive in the new world, you've got to forget the old world. And I always kind of felt that was that we were missing something by doing that. So I think, so in answer to your question, one way was how to reconnect with what on my own culture. And the other point was in the book, I speak about very openly about the betrayal from my age teacher, which was shocking, and it was just, but it really sent me my way to find something better.
So this betrayal with your teacher turned out to be a good thing in the long run.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. It looks like a much better connection now. And so we're going to dive right back into things. So where did you travel first? Where did your journey take you?
I first came to Hawaii before I lived here. And because I heard about this healing massage called Lomi Lomi, which was beyond massage. It was also about working with energy and prayer with the physical body, and also the plant medicine that exists here. And so these were the first doors that opened to me, and started in Hawaii, then went to Peru and Himalayas and on and on.
Oh, just Peru and the Himalayas. It's where everybody goes, of course. So in Peru, I take it you went down into the jungles.
Yes. And luckily, I'm from a tropical climate where I was born, so I was able to adjust. Yeah, we went into the rainforest. I was able to also have the blessed experience of being at the top of the canopy of the rainforest, and then also go down to the river and meet with shamans and things like that. So
now, when I see footage in your documentary, it's stunning footage. What surprises me as somebody who I tend to be barefoot, connecting to the Aina, connecting to the earth, and I saw somebody go down the river who may have been a guide, and he was barefoot as well. But then I see everybody tromping along through the jungle as if there aren't, poisonous vipers and stuff around. But there are, right?
Well, they weren't worried about it, and you probably cringed when you saw our hiking boots and our Doc Martens and things like that.
Oh, wow.
It's kind of funny. I think, and I may be digressing a little bit here, but I think a lot of our challenge in terms of working with our bodies and our physicalities, my theory is that underneath all that we have this great fear of being embodied, this great fear of the fragility of our physical existence. And so we gotta, we do all these measures, we go through all this craziness to try to control and to try to improve, and in many ways we may not be, because those people were moving much faster in the rainforest than I was.
and that's something we've taught about through mindful running and through other practices, which is that it's love over fear. And when you're in that fear place, you're tightened up, you're more likely to get hurt, you're landing heavy. So yeah, what you're describing makes perfect sense, that they're in the moment rather than in the fear of what's my next step going to be like.
Yes, that's right. I think having a sense of language, physical language with your environment, I think is where we need to move toward, myself included, so.
Is that part of what drew you to indigenous medicine? Because this Peruvian shaman you met, for instance, he was given I don't know the correct word for it. He may have been spoken to, may have been given visions of this tree helps with that plant. This other root is great for this.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I think that was part of my journey as well. Again, in retrospect, I have so much wisdom in retrospect. But this idea that I think that I celebrated my intellect, I celebrated my emotions, my psyche, my spirituality, but I didn't always celebrate this physical form. And so to explore physical medicine where it comes from a physical plant or a physical touch, but the information and the wisdom was given by spirits. So the spirit of the plant, the spirit of the place, and to have that come together at the patient, if you will, it was a very miraculous thing for me.
What experiences could you share? Experiences that I hear some of our people in our audience going, not necessarily that that's woo-woo, but that I don't believe in that stuff. So what did you experience firsthand that you're going, oh?
Well, there are a lot of perceptions when one travels on any journey of transformation, whether you want to run better or you want to play tennis better or you want to dance a tango better, you have to be willing to look at the perceptions that are limiting you, the beliefs that may have kept you from achieving or experiencing what you want. And so there was just the very simple things, that the fact that someone who's touching your body in a prayerful state of mind can heal a broken bone. Because most people think of massage as, oh, it feels good, or it's helping me to, get ready for the next race, but it's not. They don't think, oh my God, it can actually heal a broken bone. And the only way you can do this.
That's powerful.
Right, So that's the combination of intention, energy, and physical work coming together. Or when someone is channeling another energy field, sometimes those energy fields have names or personalities, but when they're able to bring into their physical being a state of how you see the world that's so different than the ordinary, all of a sudden the walls of things that kept you entranced or entrapped fall away.
So
and I think
what you're saying, in a sense, maybe for a little clarification, is that, for instance, once I was hit head on by a motorcycle many years ago, part of my journey, and broke my kneecap in two. And doctors are telling me how long it's going to be to heal, and you're going to be this, you're going to be that. And I ended up working in my head primarily with visioning it coming together, envisioning this golden healing light fusing this thing together. And I went back to the doc 3 weeks later because I was in college and all of my cycling teammates, were about to do this like 150 mile ride across the state of Colorado. And I really, really, really wanted to do it. And I said, can you x-ray my knee? And he's like, it's not time yet. I'm like, please, can you x-ray it? He x-rays the knees and he goes, I don't get it. It's healed. And I'm like, woohoo!
Right.
I did a 150 mile bike ride. And so that's the kind of thing you're talking about, where if we let go of our limiting belief that, oh no, it's going to take so long or require this surgery or that pill.
Yeah, I think people will say, you often hear people say mind over matter, but I'm saying mind with matter. In other words, it's one of the things that go on and on about is the apparent dualities that we live in that are limiting us, because it means that there's a mutually exclusive way to look at the world. So it's either that's woo-woo and it has nothing to do with my shoes or my feet or my body. That's an apparent duality that I think keeps us trapped and not able to grow to our potential. I mean, and you yourself have lived so many examples of mind with matter, right? And not mind over matter, mind with matter. You could have left this body. It was probably one of your choices in the near-death experiences that you had. So when you combined your mind with your matter, you decided to stay. and work now is telling people about this, what happens when these two things come together, right?
Well, it's fascinating that for myself, before I even had my near-death experiences as a kid, I was injured in a bicycle accident that required, I think all told, close to 10 knee operations. Have a hole where my ACL used to be, no cartilage, no ligaments. Became a professional athlete and really healed myself. And what I learned is the most important piece of healing is not necessarily the modality, but the belief system.
Yes.
The belief system that I am more than just this physical body, or if you want to take it from a place of ego, let's use ego as a positive.
Yep.
You can tell me I'm not going to heal, but I'm still going to heal.
Exactly. Don't tell me what I can't do.
I'll show you.
Yeah. And I think, when I used to work with people more one-on-one, I used to talk to them about the suspension of disbelief. Mm-hmm. So you don't have to buy into any of this, but I mean, when you go to the theater, you suspend your disbelief. You really think Magic Mike is doing his thing, or you really think that's his life, and you think he's, this great, heartful, exotic dancer for 2 hours, and you've suspended your disbelief, and you went there, your consciousness went there and accepted that reality. And so when I talk to people about healing, that's what's necessary. You don't have to buy into anything that doesn't ring true to you, but can you just suspend the disbelief for a minute? Maybe an hour and a half.
So what's the most fascinating healers that you saw or things that you saw on your travels?
Well, I definitely saw things that were more on the phenomenal spectrum, in terms of trance channeling, where an energy just takes over someone's body and they're not even the same person. I was able to go into a sacred cave and learn about the keys to Shambhala, right? And the seeds of the keys that will help us out of the challenges that we face now in modernity. I was able to experience the sacred ritual of Ayahuasca, which is, a psychotropic plant brew, very complex, meant for healing and meant for transformation of consciousness, not recreational.
As somebody who's gone down that road myself, when people hear this, they're thinking, oh, drug. Well, let me tell you, it is the complete opposite of a recreational experience. Exactly. If you want a recreational experience as comparison, go drive over your foot.
Exactly. Oh, yeah. Not fun at all. Yeah. And so those were things that were very marked in terms of affecting my psyche and expanding my consciousness to be able to hold something so much greater than I had known before.
Mm-hmm. So, is it Don Pablo? Is that what he went by?
Don Pablo.
So Don Ayahuasquero in the Peruvian rainforest. I was fascinated. When I think of a Peruvian shaman, I tend to think old school, dark. We're going to put you through an experience of chewing up your bones, of putting you through the fire, and then whatever emerges like a phoenix from the other side. And that's not, this is going to sound woo-woo again, it's not embracing the feminine, and that seems more what we're coming into these days. He didn't seem like that in the documentary.
Yeah, no, he was so gentle and loving and embracing, and it may have been to the stage he was in his life cycle. I didn't know him as a younger man, so who knows what kind of a badass shaman he was. But he, when we met him, he had already proclaimed himself a retired shaman, and that his work now was about helping the next generation. And so he worked to teach art to the children that were marginalized, and one, to give them a way to sustain themselves, they could sell their paintings, but two, as a way for them to have pride in their own culture and to learn the medicinal value and the spiritual value of the rainforest. So, he was just practicing his shamanism in a different form.
And I love that because he was developing a connection with the kids and the land, because you mentioned in the documentary the connection between poor economic situation and the rainforest.
Yes.
And so needing to both raise them up and help them see the wealth of the rainforest more, so they don't use that as a physical wealth.
Yes. Well, and if you think about it, if I had to live there for a week, I would probably die. You know, I would have to go to the child and say, "Feed me," or "What do you guys eat around here?" You know. So who is more advanced, right? And I think that's kind of the challenge of people in modernity, because we've kind of shielded ourselves so much from the natural elements that we've forgotten how to live within an environment as a blended part of it.
And how did that make you, it sounds like a psychiatric question, how did that make you feel? But now you're actually living off the earth or with the earth, more interwoven into the fabric.
Yes. It makes me feel grounded. It makes me feel more whole. I have a lot more access to tools to be able to deal with the things about myself that aren't pretty. So, to embrace the shadow, but work with it to move it into the light. And I live in Hawaii now, and when I'm here, because I work in Denver and I live in Hawaii, so I have a huge commute. But when I'm here, I wake up and I say, "Good morning, ocean." My alarm clock is the bird song, and right? And so you kind of can't ignore nature here. And it has allowed me to be more embodied, to celebrate that too.
So, and I'm guessing you would challenge others wherever they're at to try to find the nature in their own backyard.
Yeah, because I know people say, "Well, that's easy for you, you're in paradise." But I know a lot of people who move to paradise and forget that they're here and end up forgetting to go visit the dolphins, forgetting to dip their toe in the water, and still getting caught up because it's in the mental plane. So I think that it helps me. I need that. But also I have friends who live in the city and they find ways to go to parks, or they find ways to have a little window box of herbs, and to bring nature into their lives more.
I love it. So jumping from that to healing traditions, something fascinated me. Honestly, in your book and your documentary, at first it was about the indigenous experience, which is something that both Jessica and I are drawn to. Where Jessica's like, she's doing exactly what we want to do. and we want to go spend time, and we want to live with them ourselves and experience this and feel, as someone who walks around barefoot, and you'll see me walking down the street in my shorts, shirt off on the earth. And at first I looked kind of weird here in a suburb of New York City, and now even the police wave to me. They probably checked me out online or something. First, who is this guy and what did he steal? And now they're actually like, wow, that's so cool. Okay, going through this, you started to get so at first I was drawn into the indigenous experience.
Yes.
But then as I was reading and watching the documentary, kind of I did these in tandem, I was drawn into a super story, a story that went beyond the initial intent. And it was a theme that came up and up and up. And I think it's something that everybody has. But in your case, in some shape or form, in your case, people started telling you about yours in particular. They started saying, you have this special gift, which we all have a special gift.
Yes.
But this came up and up. What happened? What was taking place?
Well, I always say that they all outed me. I mean, I just wanted to do a documentary. I really planned on staying behind the camera and being objective, and and they wouldn't let me. Everyone I met would bring me out from behind the camera and say, "What's your deal? What are you doing? And let me see your hands. And oh, you have healer's hands, and it's on your mother's side." And I thought, "Oh, stop looking at me." And as a result of that, I did for a while have a healing practice, Michael. I'd never advertised. I had no business cards. I didn't have a website. I didn't have anything. And for some reason,
you didn't need any of that.
every no social media, nothing. And everywhere I went, I would instantly have a full-time practice. And so I think it's kind of their doing, all those spirits pushing it. But I really felt that I had something that was a gift that I had a responsibility to share.
How did that start coming? So everybody starts telling you have this gift, but it might have been good for the ego, but you're probably still going, yeah, I don't know about this.
Yeah, I think it was not good for my ego, because my ego wanted to run and hide.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I had this kind of weird false humility kind of ego. But I think I was also afraid of the responsibility. I mean, as you know, as a teacher and a coach, a leader, an example, there is a weight of responsibility that comes with that. And being the introvert that I am, I didn't really want that responsibility, or I didn't want to hurt people. I think also because of my experience with my teacher. And I thought, ooh, these are big tools, and they're kind of, you got to put your big girl panties on. And I wasn't sure if I was up for it. And they put me in a position of having to come to terms with that when they started meeting me, the healers I met. When I saw them struggling and I saw them needing help, and I thought,
that's fascinating. It's something that's in your documentary. These aunties and uncles who are absolutely amazing. I don't even know if human being is a strong enough word. They're like glowing out of their skin, and they're coming to you and saying, well, there's nobody else who can do it, but you can.
Yeah, I really felt like the universe conspired there. And of course, I wasn't going to say no, one, because of my reverence for them and respect for them, and two, because, well, who else is going to do it? I mean, I just ended up in those circumstances. I was the only one at the time, so I was forced to step up, just like a child when there's a point. Yeah, there's a point in your life where you can't be the child anymore saying, I can't do it, and feigning incompetence. You really got to step up. And I felt it was important for me to do that. I'm a different person now because of it. I'm a better leader. I'm a more compassionate being. And I think that I have a greater understanding of people. I've always kind of studied other people because I've lived in so many different cultures. But now more than ever, I have a greater sense of how important it is to put oneself in someone else's shoes or bare feet. So put myself in someone else's bottoms of their feet.
To step on their soil. I don't know, that sounds a little strange too, but connect with their mana, with their earth.
Exactly.
With the earth where they are. There, we're going to get this straight. Connect with the earth where they're at.
Exactly.
Okay, steering around that one, what gave you the courage to do that?
Besides getting my arse whooped.
Well, I say that's guidance with a 2x4.
Exactly, that happened. Yes, and yeah, I did have some very profound experiences, as you read about and saw in the film, in which I had to surrender and allow myself to be a vehicle for spirit. And
let's dive into that then.
Okay. Yeah.
Because that's something that I got a lot out of your book on. In the documentary, though, it leaves you curious, because the documentary, if I'm correct, was made prior to the book, or it was over a longer period of time, and there's been a lot of growth and evolution and development in you during that time. So at that point, you were probably saying, what happened?
Exactly right. You should be my shrink.
Oh, no.
That's exactly right, Michael. I think by the time, at least the snapshot that I was willing to share in terms of the film, I hadn't quite come to terms yet with what happened to me in Nepal, and what it meant. More than what it meant for me personally, what did it mean in terms of my relation to others, in terms of my relation to being of service?
So then, if you can answer this now, what happened? As best as you can tell.
As best as I can tell, an energy came through my physical being that I didn't recognize.
So, in the film itself, I'm seeing you're in highlands, for lack of another word, of
Yes.
Nepal.
Yes.
And you're in a little village. You're in a little home or hut. I'm not sure what the term is for it.
Yeah.
And it looks like you're having a complete breakdown, for lack of
Yes.
another term.
It's ugly. Yes. It was not pretty.
You're crying. You're muttering.
I'm crying. I look like I'm having seizures. I'm speaking in sounds that could be another language. We don't know. Um, I'm having a meltdown. I'm not able to control my body nor my speech. And in the book, I describe it. The closest thing I can describe it, or kind of make a parallel, I've only been drunk twice in my life, which is 2 times too many. And that was the feeling, as if you're trying to say something, or you're trying to walk that straight line, and you can't. And then you wake up the next morning and you go, "Oh my God, I don't know what happened, but I'm really embarrassed because I'm sure because I don't know what happened, and I think I remember some bad things." But I was blessed because the people who were around me had a context for this in their spiritual tradition, so they didn't judge me as I had been judging myself. They basically said, "Ooh, somebody wanted to use you as a microphone, and you shouldn't have resisted because that's what made it hard on you."
I'll leave the cliffhanger in there, but I'd say watch the documentary to see what happens, because Jessica's watching this and she's going, "It's a different person. It's a different person."
Yeah, I guess that's people's experience of what happens when that energy, those kind of healing energies come through. I had some people ask me, was that a reenactment and did you get an actor? And I'm like, no, that was me. But I guess I looked
the cameras were rolling.
Exactly.
And you knew you came too, because at the end you're saying, "Save the film, save the film."
Yeah, I was just like hanging on for some semblance of control. Yeah, and since then, I get this a lot after screenings, since then, how do you manage that? And I put in a request, Michael, because that's just too much for me. I said, look, I'm not in the Himalayas. I don't have people around me who get it. Can we do this in a more integrated form? So just use my personality a little bit and, work with me here instead of just taking over my body.
I have an expression, a mantra for that, which is I ask that the universe work through me and with me and guide me in any way she wants. Kind, gentle, easy, good.
Yeah, that's
and healthy.
Yeah, right. Well, yes. So it's been more integrated, I think, and people who are close to me will say apparently my face does change, or I might look a little different, which I would think would be freaky if I were on the other side of it. Mm-hmm. But the people who know and love me tend to be okay with it.
Yay.
Yay.
So fast forwarding in the story, you come back from the what in the world happened and from all of your travels. And if I understand it right, and I can only speak from my experience with near-death experiences, you come back and your head must have been spinning.
Yes. Yeah, I went through this funny re-entry phase, which I'm sure you did as well, in terms of, there's a part of you that says, "What the huh?"
That's to put it politely.
Yeah, and for a while, I had a hard time dealing with telephones and cars, and what's the meaning of life? Those kind of existential angst kind of experiences, because, how do you get your mind back into something that's familiar after you experience all this expansion? So it's kind of like a rubber band, and you stretch it and stretch it, and at some point it just can't go back, right? Or it breaks. Well, I'm hoping mine didn't break completely, but at a point it stretches.
If it breaks, you celebrate it.
So it just stretched so much that it was bigger now, and it wasn't going to be able to hold the same old things that it used to. So yeah. I had a tough adjustment period, to be honest.
So what did you do for me, it was a very tough adjustment period. The integration, it was really a crash and burn. I call the time period in my life the festivities. what is it that helped you ground, or that helped you? Because there's so many people that have some sort of an expansive experience, and it may not even be so much supernatural, but just the journey, and then they have no idea how to get it all in perspective so that they can take another step in life.
Yeah, and I think this is where the hero's journey per Joseph Campbell's work helped me, because somehow I did actually have all the steps of the heroine's journey. But I think the thing that helps the hero once they get the elixir is to come back and share it with the village.
Yes.
And so I think I got my sanity back by saying, all right, fine, all this weird stuff happened. What good is it? What's the point? So what? Right? And if it was just so I'm special, that wasn't enough for me. So it was, if I went through all this trial and tribulation and I have this elixir that was given to me, my job is to share it. And it was in the sharing of it, Michael, then and now, right, that has brought me to a place of integration.
Beautiful. So what is, you were sharing for a while, one-on-one, that was your Kuliani then.
Yes.
Your mission then. What is your mission now? Because I see it in the book, I see it in your movie, that you have a much, I don't know, greater, because is helping one-on-one is amazing, but a much vaster mission right now.
Yeah, I feel that I couldn't, so to answer your question, I feel it is moving from the one-to-one to the one-to-many, not because one is better than the other, but understanding my skill set. So I always feel like God or the universe will use us, all our foibles, all our wounds, and all our strengths. And one of my strengths is to understand the use of media as medicine. So I try to think about creating media as medicine, whether I'm having this heartful, soulful conversation with you that will hopefully inspire others. That's part of the mission.
Yeah.
Whether I'm doing that or I'm at the office and I've got my team is suffering because they're under too much stress, they have fear of failure, they don't have faith that they can do what is being asked of them. And if my job is, if I bring the elixir to them, it's, don't worry about it. Forget about the fear. Let's move together. Let's do this. And that's part of my
team of suffering.
Yeah, in other words, if my team is suffering,
okay,
so
gotcha.
I have people that work with me, and as a leader,
Yeah.
This is something I learned from the indigenous cultures, is that leaders are not on top; they're on the bottom. They have the broadest shoulders, and
Wow.
our
I heard
job,
a term recently: lead from behind.
Yeah. So you're the winds, right, pushing those sails. If you're a true leader, you've got these broad shoulders and you've got all these people above you, and they can see more than they ever could without those shoulders. So those are kind of the ways that I feel I've been able to apply the elixir in my life and share it with others. And it's definitely in the sharing of it that I got my sense of sanity back and my new points of reference for reality.
Well, it's a bigger cause, and it helps you kind of rise up to that, beyond the what the.
Exactly. Exactly. And I always say, if we make sense to ourselves and each other, then we've found our sanity. It's when we don't understand ourselves, we don't understand each other, that we get crazy.
That makes perfect sense to me. So what else did they teach you? What else did you learn on this journey that you had, that you never expected you would learn?
I alluded to this earlier, but I think I did have this dualistic thinking of that was in the past, and we're nostalgic for these practices in the past, and I don't really know how they're going to work here in this age of telephones, internet, but what I learned was that the ancients planned for this. So the things that have been preserved over the centuries are things that are necessary for us to move through as a collective into the next phase of we have the opportunity to move into our next phase of being.
That is a statement that I've never heard before. That's a very powerful statement. That's a paradigm shift. which is to say that a lot of what we say is we want to preserve culture because it's gone and we've forgotten about it. What you're saying is the past has has tools to help preserve us in a sense, that they were thinking ahead.
That's right. And so it kind of shifts that model of, oh, I'm the valiant savior. That's a little funny thing, the kind of the misnomer of the title of my book, this one woman's quest to preserve, that wasn't the intention. It was just one woman's experience of, going through this. But I did, from my ego place early on, think, I'm going to go save these things and preserve them. And
here comes that 2x4.
Yeah. Slam. And it's like, oh, hell no, we were here to help you. So I think that's a bit of a revelation for many people, that these keys to Shambhala were planted long ago. And the fact that they remain now is thanks to all the teachers and practitioners who are willing to commit to keeping them alive and to teaching them. So sometimes I get a little upset when I see people in Western culture say, well, you don't have to worry about those cultures. Just take the mindfulness and use it now. And that's not the point. The fact that you have a mindfulness practice in a technology company is because somebody of old practiced it for every day for years and years and years, and then passed it down. And then that person practiced it for years and years. You can't really just usurp the gem. It has to be some respect for the lineage.
Well, and I think if you take mindfulness as using a perfect example, if you practice mindfulness in order to boost your corporate profits or do better at work, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with that.
Not at all.
But you're going to go down the rabbit hole.
Well, yeah, get ready for the 2x4 because, you can't just peek in and steal a chocolate. I mean, so that's kind of the fun part that you and I are kind of aware of in terms of when you just start peeking behind that curtain, look out because the shows are coming.
So what is, we talked about this off air before we began, and this seems like part of your mission is to help people be a bridge.
Yeah, I think a lot of what ails us today is thinking in mutually exclusive terms and in dualistic terms. Specifically, I think if we think woo-woo or Western medicine, if we think, shoes or no shoes, if we think these kind of things are, they're traps, because you could argue that forever, but because when we're sitting on one side of a point of reference for consciousness, of course, oh yeah, that makes sense. When you switch your position, your chair over here, then, oh yeah, that's true. So if we can just accept that your reality is true from where you are, my reality is true from where I am, one, we don't have to go to war anymore. And, and we can just move on to our growth of consciousness together while honoring our differences, So I think that kind of dualistic thinking is what's at the core of what's ailing us in terms of our relationships to each other, to Mother Earth, to our surroundings, to the spirit world.
There's a dualism, too, that you were talking about, which is the spirit and the physical.
Mm-hmm. Yes, which is what I love speaking to people like you, because you've had a very visceral experience of the spiritual helping you to move through the material or the challenges of the material. And in fact, sometimes I think about, some of the things I learned about you in terms of being able to run in heat or run in the extreme cold. Well, a lot of these sages in the Himalayas used to do a practice called tumo. Maybe you're familiar with it. Maybe that's why you can do what you do, and you're just,
It's something I found out about afterwards, and what's fascinating is, and when you're saying run in the heat and run in the cold, you're meaning specifically, I'm barefoot and without a lot of gear on me, so to speak.
Right.
I did this. I was in when I first met my wife, and it's amazing that she stuck with me. We went on this first hiking experience, and we were up at 10,000, 11,000 feet at tree line. And there was a glacial lake where there was water to the edge, snow to the edge of the glacial lake. And I took off my shirt, didn't want to get it wet, and just had my shorts on and had a camera with me. And I waded in till I was up over my waist so that I could get my camera down to water level so that I could take shots up of the sun just above the glacial peaks and of the snow on the edge meeting up with the water. I didn't even think about the fact, well, this is snow on the edge of water, which means I'm in 32, 33 degree water. And I stayed there for half an hour, happy as a clam. And then it was something of, I had learned how with my breath, I basically called it a hot air balloon. Is basically I would go and light this fire inside of me. I didn't know it was a Tibetan practice.
Must be past life.
Something in there.
Yeah, so I think that, and I love it because our job, I think, people like you and Jessica and myself, is to make this stuff accessible. And to
these
say,
aren't just party tricks.
No, and what would be the point if it were just a party trick, right? There's so much greater potential for what these tools can do, but for you to be able to live the example of working mind and spirit with matter, and I think that being able to find these spiritual truths in active practice in the sports world, in the boardroom and in our personal relationships, so that's where the rubber is hitting the road right now. And that's our work, I think. Thank God. I'm really glad that would be my work if I'm so blessed to get to keep doing it.
And I cried in watching your documentary.
Aww.
So it really touched me, and it is such eye candy of a spiritual bent. And by that I don't mean a woo-woo bent. I mean when you're when they're chanting up yes. in Tibet, when you're looking at the pictures by Don Pablo in each one of those experiences, and you get to look into the eyes of these healers, and you're going, they have been places. It is so visceral that you don't have to intellectualize it. In fact, we're yes. gibber-jabbering here because if not, there'd be no show.
We could just sit here and stare at each other.
Yeah, we could do a gazing. I'm all down for that. Audience is going to be a little bit weirded out by that one. But you get that out of the documentary.
I'm so glad to hear that. I'm really glad to hear that. My greatest hope was to be able to do right by the people that I was blessed to know, to share their essence. So I think that's what you're telling me, that you could tune into their essence, which is the most important thing, more than their body, more than their tricks and their skill set. It's their essence that's very healing. And my hope is that the book and the film would capture that and be able to share it that way.
Your heart is what allowed that, because you went in places where no cameras allowed. We don't film these things. And yes. You said, I can't capture everything, but help me just capture a bit of the essence.
And I'm so blessed they said yes.
You're on the same team.
Yeah, it's so I think that's what keeps me going, Michael, because as I said, terrified of public speaking. People wouldn't know that, and knowing that my job is to keep fulfilling this promise of spreading their essence as much as I can. That's what keeps me going.
Beautiful. So I've got just a couple wrap-up questions for you.
Okay.
The first is, no small questions here. What are, seatbelt, prepare. Yes, perfect. What are 3 takeaway pieces of advice you'd give people from your travels and from your experiences?
The first one that I always go to is commitment. So whatever it is you want to experience, to know, to be good at, commit to it. And you make the commitment first before you take any step. Because once you make the commitment, the choices that appear before you are different than when you're just, testing the waters.
As an example, it's a lot different to say, someday I'm going to leave my job. And,
Yes.
and then to make a firm commitment that I'm leaving my job. And all of a sudden these opportunities show up before
Yes.
you.
Yes, that's right. So for me, commitment is the biggest one. The second one is faith. And I say faith, not blind faith, because faith is, I think, only really blind because of our own limitations of ability to see. But to have faith that there's something that I may not be able to see because it's my blind spot. So just be open to the fact that there might be something right there that I can't see, but is there. So commitment, faith. And I would say the third thing is compassion, which is different than sympathy. And compassion for self, compassion for each other. But to me, I think the underlying definition of compassion is true understanding. Because if you really understand someone, that means you can put yourself in the soil where they walk. And so that allows for, you're not trying to understand them, you're not trying to accept them. You have compassion because you understand.
That is a beautiful description, a very powerful one. It's a reframing. And I think when it comes to ourselves, because I think we are the hardest ones to have compassion for, meaning have compassion for yourself.
Yes.
But if you truly walk a mile in your own shoes and pay attention to it,
Yes.
and learn about yourself, how could you not love yourself?
Right, right. And once you understand what motivates you to do the things that maybe you don't like, then you have half a chance of changing it.
Amen. All right. One last question that we ask all of our guests, which is, what brings you the greatest happiness, or what I call the woohoo factor?
I would definitely say it's meditation in motion, usually in nature. So whether that's walking on some rocks, taking a swim, sitting and just gazing out and saying hello to the ocean, those things give me the fuel to even be able to lift my hands for the woohoo.
I like it. I like it. Meditation in motion. Well, thank you so much. I've got to ask for everyone out there, where do you want to send people to find out more and to find your book and find your documentary?
Thank you. TalkingStoryBook.com is my website.
Talking Storybook.
Very easy. I just gave them a mnemonic. And there you can find out about my events. You can find out about where to find the book, the DVD, and just how to stay in contact with me through social media and my newsletters, and just to learn a little bit more about me too. So TalkingStoryBook.com.
Fantastic. And you can also find out more. We'll put more information, things from this interview, plus links to be able to get the book on our website as well. And that is inspirenationshow.com. No, I have to say thank you.
This was great. I love talking story with you.
Woohoo! For everyone out there, this is Michael Sandler saying, be well, have fun, talk story, and shine bright. Woohoo! Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like below. Also leave your comments, have some real fun with it. Subscribe to our channel where you're going to get more great videos, more interviews coming up. And check out our website, inspirenationshow.com. That's where you'll find tips, blogs, information, videos you won't find anywhere else, and useful and helpful resources to really help you kickstart your life and to shine bright. Thanks so much again. Thank you for your support. Like, comment, subscribe. See the website. Thanks so much and have fun. Of course, shine bright. Woohoo!